A very good afternoon from the sports desk. The Rugby Championship gets underway this afternoon with South Africa hosting Australia at Loftus Versfeld. Duane Vermeulen will skipper the world champions in the absence of Siya Kolisi, while Jean Kleyn is set to make his debut. For the visitors, it's the new dawn under the guidance of former England coach Eddie Jones. eNCA sports reporter Percivale Young is in Pretoria, joined by eNCA sports editor Vatangobeli. A very good afternoon to you, Percy. We haven't seen the Springboks in action in a while. How's the atmosphere at Loftus?
Yes, good afternoon, Nandi. I can tell you there's a jovial mood here at Loftus Versfeld. It's the home of the Blue Bulls Rugby Union, but today it will be the battleground for the Springboks versus the Wallabies here in the first test match of a condensed Rugby Championship. I can tell you, Nandi, 50,000 fans expected here to fill up this venue, this iconic venue here today. And it's going to be the sixth time that these two nations will face off here at Loftus Versfeld. The Springboks have never lost a match against the visitors here at this venue. But Eddie Jones, a man who never minces his words, says they are confident that today they can record history here at Loftus Versfeld. But Duane Vermeulen, the man who's standing in as captain, his views are very different. He reckons they're here to hold their record and ensure that they start the season on a great and positive note. I'm joined by Vatangobeli, the eNCA sports editor, a man who knows the battle between the two nations. Vata, thank you for joining me. You surely must be excited ahead of this massive clash this afternoon.
No doubt, Percy. I think the tickets being sold out months before this test, speaks to the expectation, first of all, of the South African fans. But second, I think the biggest thing is what the Springboks actually mean to South Africa. World champions, beat the British and Irish Lions, and they're embarking on becoming the first team to actually win 4 world titles together. So I think what's important, Percy, to understand is that you don't go to a World Cup without having done the work. And this is where the work starts. It starts today. They need to make sure that they beat the Wallabies and they beat them convincingly. Because you go back to 2019, again, it was the Springboks who became the first team to win a Rugby Championship, but more than anything, to win a World Cup in the same year. They became the first team again to lose a game at a World Cup and go on to win the tournament themselves. So they're a team that defies, history. And again, history is going to ask for them to defy it again. And I've got no doubt in my mind that with Rassie Erasmus and Jacques Nienaber there, they can repeat what they did. However, you can't take this Wallabies team for granted, because we've seen in the past, a guy like Eddie Jones is so wily, knows how to beat the Springboks, because he's been part of them as well. However, history again will tell you, not here at Loftus, can they come here and defy it? Because the man who's here now, Jake White, who won the World Cup in 2007 with the Springboks, came here with the Brumbies team, defied history and became the first team to cross the Indian Ocean and actually win a Super Rugby playoff match here at Loftus.
As you can see, Vata, the fans are really excited here behind us. 50,000 fans expected here today. Eddie Jones, a man you've just been speaking about now, he opted for 4 debutants in his side and 2 experienced co-captains in Michael Hooper and obviously James Slipper. Just between the two of them, there's more than 250 test caps. Can that side come and upset the Springboks here at Loftus Versfeld today?
I think take nothing away from Eddie Jones and their skipper and the 2 skippers as well, and the team itself, because they're an unknown factor when it comes to the Rugby Championship itself. You've got a new coaching staff, a heavy coaching staff with a lot of experience in it, but he also sit with the Wallabies team as well, that's been able to beat the Springboks when they're at their best. We saw them last year, they did the same thing. So, there's no reason why the Wallabies are not going to, be a formidable force for the Springboks. However, as I said, Percy, history says a lot about what the Springboks can do here at Loftus. And more than anything, I think the Bulls will feel comfortable, the Boks will feel comfortable playing at altitude, first of all. But I think secondly, they're a settled squad, settled team. This is not a weakened side. It's a team that is full of a lot of World Cup winners within it, but at the same time as well, a lot of guys who've played test match rugby. So the only new guy, or new face within the Springbok setup will be Jean Kleyn. So I think, Eddie Jones would have warned his team that don't think you're going to have a good time at Loftus. Be extremely careful of what the Springboks are going to do. And the Springboks don't want to start off this season off in a bad way. As you said, you mentioned earlier on, it's a condensed season, so they understand. They've only got 6-7 games before the World Cup. And the work really starts now. If you lay a marker right now, you know, it sets you up nicely going into the World Cup.
We have to wrap it up 15 minutes before that first kickoff. Referee Bryce Lawrence, Ben O'Keefe are obviously officiating this match today. How important, you roughly touched on it, how important will a good start be for the Springboks in this very important year heading off to France later this year?
It is critical, Percy. You cannot, you know, in any international season, think that you will stumble into some sort of momentum. You've got to ensure that you get a good start, and the good start starts today. You know, the Springboks need to make sure that today they lay a marker going forward, because it's the All Blacks next week, you know, in Auckland, and then a week after that, it's Argentina. And as both teams have said, everyone in the top 8, top 9 can beat each other on any given day. So again, it's important the Springboks, they know who they're playing now. They're playing all the Southern Hemisphere teams. They go and they play Wales, they play the All Blacks in Twickenham, and the next thing is the World Cup. So you got to ensure that the marker is laid down now. So by the time you get to the World Cup, you play your Scotlands, your Tongas, and that big game against Ireland that everyone's talking about. You've done all the hard work. You've won your first 2 matches within the group, and that match against Ireland becomes academic. And the Springboks would have made sure that they get themselves into the quarterfinals. But Percy, before we even talk about the World Cup, it's critical that the Rugby Championship gets tied down, and today is the time that Rassie, Jacques, and Duane, they tie down today, right here and now at Loftus.
But we're going to have to leave it there. Nandi, as you can hear, it's a massive clash. It's a very important clash in this very important year. It's a World Cup year. 62 days to be exact before the World Cup kicks off in France later this year. Obviously, the Springboks kicking off their campaign in France against Scotland. But first things first, it's the Springboks facing the Wallabies. Eddie Jones versus Jacques Nienaber and his team. It's Duane Vermeulen versus Michael Hooper and his Chargers. It's a massive clash. It's the first test match of the season. It's the Springboks versus the Wallabies live here at Loftus Versfeld. 50,000 fans expected here today. Well, we'll have to wait and see. It's all happening around about 5:05 this afternoon. Nandi?
Percy, I'm getting goosebumps just listening to you talk about this match and seeing all the fans coming in, excited fans behind you as you were busy interviewing Vatshangomeni there. It is eNCA's Percivale Young previewing Springboks against the Wallabies Rugby Championship encounter at Loftus, along with sports editor Vatshangomeni. I'm going to leave things there. Here's a look at your weather.